Okay, welcome to the October 19th meeting of the CNCF IoT Edge Working Group. I saw two items on the agenda. Well, actually, I see a third coming in now. We're going to be discussing the white paper and at KubeCon North America next week. Some of the people in the call are giving a presentation on this. So I believe they're going to do a kind of a teaser / rehearsal of that presentation. There's also an agenda item. I'm not sure who added it on the QR code for a Google form, and also a discussion probably by Joel of moving the white paper draft to GitHub. So I'm not sure which. I'll leave it up to you, Kate, as to what order you want to do those.
I see one of the more pressing ones of being to see what we think about the final version of the white paper and whether we think it's ready to move to GitHub. So I would proposition discussing that first.
Sounds like no objection, so I just go for it.
So, and I jumped ahead of Joel on this by accident. I'm sorry about that, Joel. I just moved everything to HackMD to kind of give us the format that we would see on GitHub. And then I think Joel got a chance to look through it potentially. And with the idea being that hopefully maybe after this meeting, Joel could put a PR into runtime, the path. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. One second. There we go. So the goal being that maybe after this meeting, we would be able to get this into runtime, and we were thinking the PR would just go under working group, and then there would be a subsection here called white papers, and then in IoT Edge we would just link to that. And then in Amar and I's presentation, we can point to this GitHub white paper. So what I did is just basically took everything and moved it over. And oh, thanks, Joel. Did you do these here? I really like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
I've gotten down to right there.
Here.
And then and then I put a note in the Google Docs paper.
About where you were at?
That's just, no, if you look, well, we can go to Google Docs or Here Works where the quote is that says an application built natively. That sentence, if you scroll up a little, it's already quoted above.
Okay.
That if you go all the way down to autonomy.
Oh, okay.
That right there is quoted there. So in Google Docs, I just reworded the lead-in sentence that said, as stated above.
Okay, yeah.
Stated above, and then the glossary continues with the last sentence in that quote. But if you look at Google Docs, and that's as far as I've gotten.
Okay.
And I've corrected a couple. I did the indents for the quotes, and I corrected a couple sources. But I put a comment right there, where there's a comment on the right. Excuse me.
Okay, so what you're proposing is we delete this here, essentially.
Right, because it's just above in the paper. Just above cloud native versus edge native, that first quote right there is the exact same quote.
When was this added? Because I feel like another option would be to remove this.
Yeah. That could work too.
Because yeah, because I think it's a bit redundant. But at the same time, I get we're defining what is edge. So if you're reading this paper section by section, this is quite helpful. So like if we think about every section being able to stand alone, then I would keep this here. If we're focusing more on the flow of the whole paper, I would remove it.
I think I would remove it. I think it's better for the flow for it to be together. And I think the high level definition of edge is already available here.
Okay, yeah, so this is what is edge, and then we're here, what is edge
Yeah.
native? Okay. Is anyone opposed to me deleting this?
No, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Then we'll just go into the HackMD. And I think before we bring this to GitHub, it might be good, Joel, for us to just look at any updates, like the
Yeah.
history. Which is great that we have that as a.
Yeah. Hey, a quick question, Kate. Does this autosave HackMD?
Yes,
Okay.
so it just automatically does that.
But and Kate, I hadn't done anything, so this was perfect. I was gonna wait until today before doing any of the. So it's great that you already have it there. I
Okay.
had not done that already, so
Sounds good. So essentially what I wanted to propose is maybe we all take 2 minutes, or one idea is we all take 2 minutes and read through this real quick. And 2 minutes obviously is not enough, but like we've seen it, so we get an idea. Or we just kind of roll through this, and the question is this ready to be a PR? We can still iterate a little bit in PR format, but do we feel comfortable with this? I've made all the grids the same. If you all are interested, there's a really good tool online for just copying and pasting grids, and it makes it markdown. It's awesome. We have our differences. And then we have edge native applications, just a quick definition in a sense. Edge native principles. I think we wanted to choose one of these two, actually. Handles, where is that? Sorry for making.
Also, I changed the order to match what's in the slides, but we don't, we don't have to, we can use any order.
Okay, no, that's great.
Hey.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Kate. I was gonna say more, Kate, with the if you scroll down, so you have the slide, the picture, the diagram that groups them. If we put the principles, that I don't know if those are grouped according to the slide that's below that one.
Yeah, make it match that is what you're saying?
Correct. And then that first rectangle in the upper left, resource aware, that I believe got changed to hardware aware.
Yeah, I
So
updated
the
that
slide
in the,
itself just needs to get updated. Great.
in the Google Doc. I updated it.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you. I'll switch that over. Thank you.
Perfect.
And what about, so I'll redo that whole HackMD based on the history. Also here we have two different principal names. Which one are we going? Or difference principal names? Is it handles intermittent connectivity or aware of variable availability? it seems like we're going aware of it. Yeah, we went with aware, it sounds like, if that's good with everyone. And
The only remark I'd have is availability is a quite different concept from connectivity, right?
yeah, that's true.
If we're talking about communications, I like you could have variable connectivity, but availability would often even encompass things like hardware redundancy for power supply, CPUs, and generally in the industry, that's much broader than just networking.
I like that because we use the word connectivity in here, so
Okay, yeah. I like connectivity better than availability based on what is really being talked about in this role.
we need to be consistent on our capitalization. Okay. I'm just gonna reconcile these changes later, and use, like I was saying, the document history. If we can keep going, and so it sounds like the changes that we need to make sure are reconciled are new reorder grid.
And Kate, in the Google Doc, looks like Amar did that yesterday. There was a comment there.
Right, in the Google Doc. I'm talking about the things that need to be
Yeah.
moved over to the
Oh,
HackMD.
okay. Gotcha.
Just in case I don't see it in the history. Okay. And then so what are, as I scroll, please like mention anything that seems out of place for you. We also need to figure out capitalization changes, but yeah, so essentially there's this section is not explicitly stated. So basically in the HackMD, I added a section called grouped edge native principles. Do people like this, that like a subcategory here that says that, or do you prefer it not to be sectioned and instead just be stated that these 9 can also be seen as 6?
I think a heading is good. It
Yeah.
helps break up the text and yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, it should be something that you can use later, both, to cut and paste into a slide for a better visual. And if we ever get to our longer range thing we talked about related to doing a landscape, maybe open source projects might fall into these categories.
Yeah, that's what, so I was hoping we would do that from the start. So after you created the spreadsheet, I added a column that says Edge Native Principles. And so when you add your project, you can list all the principles common delineated that relate, and then people could go into the document and filter by principle. Say they need something that helps them with external device connectivity or infrastructure and platform management on the edge, they could just filter it that way, which seems helpful. Okay, so what do people think of this? This came from a slide that Amar built. We certainly could reformat it, change it. Is it thumbs up, thumbs down, change?
Thumbs up for me.
Okay. And then for conclusion and next steps, this is what we wrote last time, and it's pretty small. It's just there will likely be revisions, and we anticipate subpapers breaking off of this. It's obviously small. I think this is a draft, so we can see it as incomplete, but is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
It looks like a good starting point to me.
Okay, and then I think the survey maybe that Natalie will talk about can go into the how to get involved in section as well. But for how to get involved right now, I just added, this is something that I think maybe it's not in here. So I can copy it over if people like it, but basically I just wanted to say this is what our working group is, and instead of stating all of our meeting times and everything, it's nice to have one source of truth. So I just linked to the communication section of our landing page and said see the most up-to-date information there. And then right here would be a great place potentially to add that survey that you've talked about, Natalie, but maybe that shouldn't go in the white paper itself. Maybe that just goes in our presentation.
Yeah, I was thinking it would more go in the presentation
Okay,
versus the white paper.
yeah, that makes sense. Great. And if people like this, I can go ahead and add that to the here. The links obviously are a little different. And that needs to be boistered. Okay, and then if we go back over, I kind of like the visual of HackMD, but then this is kind of our open source projects list. So I point to the spreadsheet that Steve set up, and then also add the QR code. And this is, while like if you're reading a white paper, you're probably just going to use the link. It's kind of nice to have the QR code in case we ever want to use this anywhere. So like presentations and such. So we have one source of truth with it. And I use like QR.com for this, so we should be able to get stats on it. So I'm wondering if I should instead maybe make a shared login or something like that for it, so that we can all get access to the stats for the QR code, if that makes sense. I can look into that.
Yeah, I think a number of those QR links, you maybe can't modify it without creds, but a lot of them will let you read the stats just
Okay,
anonymously. I don't know if this particular one does or not.
I'll look into that. Yeah, and then so okay, obviously authors and reviewers is hard. I took the list that we had in the paper, and we had proposed authors, and I wasn't sure how in line that is with actual authors. So I wasn't sure what to do there. And we also had our reviewers section.
I'd say the way we treat it, we've now had months worth of work on this. So if somebody's on that authors list who hasn't been showing up, they probably should be removed. And then for the people, including everybody on this call who are more or less regulars, I think let them choose whether they'd rather be deemed an author or a reviewer. It's kind of up to you.
Yeah, so that's kind of what
Self-nomination.
that's what I did, is I looked through our IoT and Edge working group meeting notes, seeing who was there, and added folks who seem to be more active to the authors section, and then folks who added like good comments whether than the doc and in the meetings to the reviewer section. I think adding one of the reviewer section who would like to deem themselves an author could, but that's how I went about it. I'm not sure the best way. Maybe I should just ping each of the reviewers and ask if they would like to be promoted to author, or what's the best way forward with that?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to offend anybody who felt they preferred being an author or a reviewer. And I don't know,
how about this? When we put in the PR, I'll try and tag like everyone like in the conversation of it. I can try and tag everyone who is an author or reviewer and just say, hey, how do you feel about being an author / reviewer? If you want to change, feel free to voice that, and you can change what you're categorized as.
that sounds good.
It sounds good. Do it in the public, right?
Great. And then if anyone on this call sees this and thinks I'm missing anyone, that would be super helpful to add them to reviewers or authors, because I of course do not want to do that. And so this section I'm just gonna copy this over to, because it's, and in the paper itself we added LinkedIn's. Do we want to do that or GitHub handles or something along those lines?
You mean like for each author, you'd give their
Oh gosh, that's ugly.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, we had that above.
I suppose that should probably be another opt-in, because some people, well,
Yeah.
probably everybody has one, but that isn't necessarily the case. And
Yeah,
Sorry, this is-
maybe keep it, yeah, open for people to add a custom link.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest as well. If people just want to do it, they can just add it to the doc themselves.
yeah,
That way you don't feel like there's some kind of weird pressure on you to kind of figure that out.
there's all kinds of things that come into play, I think, with like EU privacy laws and things. So when you put that in, you have to provide for some right to be forgotten, that somebody could come back a year later and ask to be removed. And you're maybe going down a path with a lot more complexity than the real thing is. I think having an ability for people to track you down and find you. I think we're all on Slack anyway. And the fact is, if we left no links there, I think people could figure out how to get in touch with every one of us. You know, just Kubernetes Slack, for example.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so it sounds like if you would like on this call, if you would like something linked in before I update the HackMD, just go ahead and add a link to your name. Otherwise, when I do a call out in the GitHub, it's in the PR, I'll ask if you want a link, specify it, and I'll just, well, maybe we do max 1 link per person, just so we don't have like comma Twitter. If you want a link, just post it in the PR and we'll add it. Great, and then references. I think Natalie, maybe it was you who compiled or everything in this references, or maybe Joel, I can't remember who. We had someone who compiled this list of references.
It wasn't me. I added a reference,
Okay.
but I didn't compile this list. So I'm not sure who did that.
Yeah, I just summarized everything. I went through the paper and believe I caught every hyperlink that was in there.
Okay,
This
great.
looks good. I think, you know, just as a note going forward, I think the list is good now, but anything that is kind of vendor neutral by, you know, an analyst group or something like that, or an open source foundation is good. I don't think we want to start accepting reference links that are kind of like links to vendor stuff, because there'd be no end to that. And, you know, once we let one in, we'd end up having to add 100 to this list. And personally, I don't know that I want to go that way.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like there's nothing glaring standing out about this. And I'll update the publish date, or Joel can update the publish date whenever he puts in the PR / whenever it's merged. But it sounds like we are feeling pretty comfortable with the way this is.
Looks good to me.
Okay, great. Well, then maybe after this, I'll do those revamps. And Joel, I'll pass the baton off to you to put the PR in, if that sounds good.
Yeah. Did we want to, like, when you're done, Kate, I can go through and review it, and I'll send anyone else to have more eyes just to double check the flow and typos and things.
Yeah, and we can also do that in PR as well, but I think for sure a read through would be
Okay.
great. Okay, that sounds good. I think we can say that we have discussed the moving to GitHub. Before we move to KubeCon presentation teaser, maybe we can, Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the interest Google form and setting one of those up for the presentation?
Yeah, so the reason I had brought it up and mentioned it is because I didn't know if that was something that you guys wanted to do, but we could do a Google form or a survey link for the presentation that'll link people to more information. But I wasn't sure if we wanted to do something like asking people specific questions about their interest in IoT Edge or what they were kind of hoping to see or things like that. And so I just wanted to bring it up for the group to kind of think about and kind of make a decision. And I can start the Google form, that's not a problem. But I wanted to make sure that we were all kind of in agreement and intent.
I think it sounds fine. I'm kind of busy going into KubeCon, so I won't have time to help out on composing that, but
Yeah, that's totally fine. But again, it was more, I wanted to know more about intent from everybody. Like, would you feel like the value would be to ask questions about people's interest in IoT Edge or what they were hoping to see? Or would it be more, or should the QR code be more directing to our group page? So people could more easily access it.
I mean, it also looks like, I mean, it's a great initiative, but always these things takes time to do. If you want to do a survey or things like that, so I'm not sure if you have resources to do it at this point. So maybe it's better for now to just link to the. If someone has ideas and will to come with a proposition, that's great. But
I think there's a third option there of doing a very simple survey. So the survey could just say, like, are you interested in joining the working group? Are you interested in presenting at the working group? What's your way of contacting you? Who are you? Thank you. Like, it could just be that simple. I think some people get intimidated by Slack, and so they don't want to come into Slack and just say, here I am, I heard that I could present. So maybe having a Google form would help with that. The one concern I have is that could also distract people from putting their project on our Edge native projects.
Well, it sounds like we're going in two different directions here, like there's a group of people who represent projects, who could be presenters themselves, but there's also the group of people who are users or prospective users of applications at Edge. And I think asking them what they're interested in, or maybe even a quick way to get something that shouldn't be controversial, is we already have those 9 categories. We could ask people to just check boxes on which of those they're interested in, to kind of prioritize what seems to be drawing interest and audience from users. And then I kind of like the idea of making future agendas be user-driven rather than project or vendor-driven, because, otherwise, if no users are interested in something and we bring in a vendor talking about something nobody cares about, we didn't accomplish that much. Was that the idea of your survey, Natalie? just curious as to whether you envisioned it being like user interest focused versus, kind of along the lines of projects or vendors.
Yeah, so I had a couple of ideas for it. One idea was definitely focused on getting feedback. One, I was kind of like, do you guys want feedback on your presentation? Right. And so that'd be a good way to get it. Then the other thing I wanted to try to loop it back to is to this group. Right. But I just wasn't sure, like, should we try to do it more on project focus? Should we try to do it more on topic driven stuff? Or should we try to do it what Kate was talking about, right? About is there a project that you guys want to contribute or talk about during our meetings? And so that's why I wanted to talk about this really quick, because the survey shouldn't take very long. I was thinking it would be a very simple survey, because honestly, who wants to fill out like a 20-page survey or a 20-question survey? I don't want to do that. Honestly, I pull up one of those and I'm like, nope, I'm out. Right. Because who has that kind of time? But yeah, it was just meant to be a really simple survey just to capture some information from people who are interested.
Well, let me suggest this. I like the idea of a survey, but really somebody should review it. I mean, I'm happy with you doing it and putting it together. And we've got 2 people presenting at KubeCon who would give the link to the survey. So how about if the 2 presenters approve it? If they like it, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have to check back with me. And I like the idea of keeping it short. In my own experience, one of the best things to do with the survey is state out front how long it takes. Because, often you get this link and you decide that I'm on my 10th question and you blow it off and you don't send it in. And the right way to do it is, here is a 1-minute survey or a 2-minute survey. And, you state up front what the worst case is. And I think you'll end up with a lot more people going through to completion that way.
Yeah, my intent was like a 1-minute survey.
Yeah.
Not like something super crazy long. So yeah, I'll pull something together and I'll share it in the Slack channel.
Yeah, is that okay? I mean, I nominated the 2 presenters at KubeCon for extra work here, but I want to hear their feedback on whether that sounds acceptable or something you'd like, because you're the ones who have to live with it potentially.
I'm happy with it. We're gonna have a QR frenzy slide. I think during the Q&A, we'll have 3 QR codes next to each other. So that'll be kind of fun. Because we have the spreadsheet one, we'll have the survey one. And then to what you were noting, Natalie, CNCF already provides us with a feedback QR code that goes through Sched. So that'll be the 3rd one. So we'll just be like, bum, bum, bum. So maybe no one will be asking questions because we'll just be like scanning the whole time. But I like it. I think it sounds great. 3 is a great number. Cool. Well, is there something, Steve, that Natalie needs to do to link it to our Google group? Is that something that we would like? If we're using a Google form, can we somehow link it to our Google group? Is there a way to do that?
I think that there is a way to have it. See, our group has an email alias that is just what IoT Edge at Google Groups or something like that. I think you can actually assign Google anything on a G drive to be owned by the group. However, if Natalie was to do it, since she's not an admin of the group, the moment that happened, she'd probably be giving it up. So I don't really know. Historically, I have never, even though I've composed plenty of documents, including like our shared agenda notes thing, to be honest, I don't know who owns that document. It is just open for edit by all members. So I think that might be okay if Natalie was technically the owner, but she granted edit to the entire group alias. I think that would be acceptable to me, as opposed to the group.
I would rather do that. I don't want to be the sole owner, because if someone wants to add something, I don't want to be the bottleneck.
Yeah, I don't actually know if you can have multiple owners. I think maybe, but I'm by no means an expert on Google Drive. But I think you can have multiple editors, but I think there might only be one owner.
Editors. They may not be owners, but they can edit.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly happy making sure that everybody has that ability, because like I said, I don't want to be a bottleneck if some decision was made and I wasn't around and you guys are like, we should add another thing.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, Natalie, maybe you can sync with Amar and I offline if you run into issues adding people as editors, and we can make sure that you're not the sole helm of that document. That sounds good. Okay. So I'm just gonna add to the notes. And then I think the only other thing was for Amar and I to kind of give a run through of our presentation. Is there anything else that we wanted to do before that?
You can take silence as no.
Great. And did we want to stop recording for this? Is that something
Yeah.
that we talked about? Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
How do I do that again? I think I need to first stop share. Okay. I'll stop the recording then. Thanks for the great.
Hey, by the way, I just looked up ownership, for example, for prior precedent, and we've been able to work with this, but technically, just out of curiosity, I looked up the owner of our running agenda notes document, and it's Cindy Zhang, who hasn't even been active in the group. But I think the only downside to there being an owner like that is if she ever closed her Google account, I think the document would disappear. But so technically, it would be probably better to have them owned by the group. But if we've gotten away with this kind of policy for years and nothing bad happened, I think we can live with it for now.
Sounds good.